Today we're talking to Sneha, who's an independent brand designer working in different industries and fields. She's also has led in internal brand design and an academy and graphy. Hey Sneha, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Rahul, what's up?
It's all good. How are you? How's Bangalore?
Very cold actually, and kind of like the weather is really lazy, and like the nights and the days kind of merge into each other. There's less sun and stuff, so a little sleepy.
Yeah, but I think Bangalore, like, it's good to be that than being in scorching sun, right? In Ahmedabad, where I am.
Yeah, I would take this any day of the week over Ahmedabad or like where I grew up in Dubai or like where I'm from. Like any of those places, I prefer this. But yeah, I mean, since you asked and like compared to usual, it's a little bit sleepy. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Let's just get into it. I'm just gonna ask you the big question. How did you become a designer?
The namesake of the podcast. Yeah, so I actually thought about this before because I've seen some of the episodes, and also, I mean, it's the name of the podcast, so I knew you'd ask me this question. The short answer to this question is I went to design school, I got a design degree, and that's how I became a designer. There's nothing super exciting about that. But yeah, like some backstory, why and like more why I became a designer. Um, I think that like I mean, I start at the top. I think that as a child growing up, I had a
Hmm.
pretty colorful life. Like what I mean by that is I had a lot of different interests, a lot of different hobbies. I was fairly good at academics. I really enjoyed math. I love science. And I did not uh, I mean, I know a lot of people who go into like arts and design often don't resonate with the sciences or like some of the more typical paths that we have in India as career options. But
Hmm.
it was less by elimination and more just that I like doing a lot of different things. I used to play cricket. I love playing all kinds of
Oh.
sports. Yeah, so I think that overall I just had a lot of different interests but one thing that I think was pretty consistent as I was growing up as well was um, I thought I wanted to, you know, be creative in some way, and I don't
Hmm.
exactly know even what that meant. And no one in my family has any. Then no one is like in any kind of creative field, so to say, like not in any of the arts or even architecture or anything for that matter in
Hmm.
my immediate family. Everyone's either engineers, mostly engineers actually, or like have studied commerce and things like that, but not a lot of business influences, not a lot of medical or arts. But my granddad, my mom's dad, he was a textile engineer. So I grew up with a lot of influence. Like I loved going like shopping with my mom and my grandmom and my aunt. And I love like appreciating lots of different textiles. And that's something that I think as I've grown older, I have noticed that that's something that I've absorbed without even being kind of conscious of it. So I love different kinds of weaves. I love like different kinds of material, trying to see like, and I learned about this more from a from like how it's made point of view and less aesthetically. So because
Hmm.
my granddad used to tell us about like what the um, how it's made and like what is the quality of the material, how long it will last, things like that.
Hmm.
And and then also on the other hand, like in school, like when I was talking about academics as well, I never enjoyed reading very much. I wasn't very good at it. I don't know what that
Okay.
means, but uh, I, I I couldn't sit with a book for really long, and I really struggled to read. So I I love drawing. I love drawing diagrams. We used to have this monthly, like in our school, we
Hmm.
there used to be in the corridors, the passageways to the different classrooms or whatever. They used to have like this big felt board where they would have like just different subjects or whatever that you could create some kind of um, like with chart paper, you could create different charts, like I don't know what they're
Okay.
called. And every month, the section that would get to showcase whatever topic or work that they wanted to, it would
Hmm.
change. So I would really look forward to that. Like most of the people in my class would dread that because it would mean that you would have to do research, and then after that, like draw and write on chart paper in like big letters, and like it was a lot of work, and like you're not really getting any points for it. It's just like an extracurricular, but I love doing that. Like it would be a chance for me to just kind of draw things that I found off the internet, or off certain books. um, I started doing this thing when I was young. I wanted to be able to write like a paragraph in big, letters without drawing any lines. So I was really lazy to draw like, those lines with pencil and then draw them. And then oftentimes when you
The
erase a
guidelines, yeah.
pencil, yeah, when you erase the pencil mark, like the marker gets smudged and it gets super messy. And I was like really annoyed by that. So I was like, I need to find a way to do this without drawing lines. So yes, I like started practicing to write in straight lines. It came from a place of like laziness, but people were like super impressed by that. They were just like, oh my god, like how are you writing in a straight line with that? Because people would often just, it kind of slants down or slants up usually. Um but yeah, I love doing that. I would draw like these big cartoon, like cartoon character type things for like what different topics. I distinctly remember one time that we had to make this board thing. I don't know why we did it around like pirates. So like I drew like this cartoon pirate, painted it with like poster paints, had a lot of fun, and like everyone, I love doing it. Like people seem to be very fascinated and very impressed by the quality of my work. And I was just like, I'm enjoying doing this. I don't think so much about it. But so growing up, I always thought that this seems fun. I don't know what kind of career I could make out of this. But out of all the things that I loved at that point in my life, I think that, like I said, I used to play sports, I used to play cricket, but I didn't think I was ever good enough to make it on like an Indian team. You
Okay.
need to be a special category of person, to like, a sports person is like a lifetime commitment to be a professional sports person, especially for like a religion of a sport in India. To make it into a national team is not a joke. I have a friend also who tried that, and it's less about your skill after a certain point. It's more about like your ability to navigate the bureaucracy, the politics, all of these different things, which I don't know why as a young kid I kind of knew that I'm good but I'm not good enough. So this is good for me to just kind of be, like for it to be a hobby or whatever. um, the sciences, again, I enjoyed it, but I think later, towards the last couple of years of school, it became quite difficult. And I couldn't imagine like doing this forever. And like, I didn't know what I honestly also like, it seemed like all the engineers that I knew eventually became like managers. So I was like, I don't know really
Yeah.
what an engineer would do. And like, I don't know if I want to be like a manager. So I was not sure about that. Medicine was never really an option because I never enjoyed biology. I like, and you need bio. And
Hmm.
also, I just didn't want to like be doing like studying medicine for like 20 years of my life before I get a job that
So,
feels like I finally made it.
I'm seeing
Yeah.
a pattern here, Sneha. Like you're like, okay, anything which requires a long term thing, you're like, you know what? I want to find something which is more fun in a short term wala thing. Was that a thing or
Mm,
just like I'm just assuming?
I don't know. I think it's more that I was just kind of pragmatic and realistic
Hmm.
about like what I'm good at and what I enjoy doing. It was less about the effort. I think that, see, eventually I didn't know. So the point that I was coming to was that I didn't know about design when I was in
Correct.
school.
Right.
I knew about like fashion, I knew about interior design. I think these are pretty common. there were a lot of like celebrities who were interior designers or fashion
Mhm.
designers.
Also,
So I get
your grandfather was in textile, right? So you would meet these
exactly.
people too.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't even know about textile design. It was like textile engineering or like fashion
Oh.
design. And again, a little more context. So I didn't grow up in India.
Hmm.
I grew up. I was born in Abu Dhabi, in UAE, and I grew up in Dubai pretty much my entire childhood, like until uh, grade 12. So I did all my schooling in the same school from like grade 1 to grade 12. But I studied in a CBSE school, so it was very much like I had a lot of Indian influences around me, my education, my
Uh,
friends, all of that.
I,
Yeah,
I have a question there. So in
yeah,
Dubai,
sure.
there are CBSE schools like who teaches
Yeah.
central board of it. Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
So, yeah, there are CBSE schools and then there are ICSE schools also. And then, of course, there are like British curriculum schools. There are,
Hmm.
what they call it, O levels. Then they have even IB schools, which is like, I think, some kind of international standard. And then they have
Yeah.
even the local, for like for Arabs, they have their own schools, which are usually government and free for Arabs, but like they could be Arabic or English medium, depending on like what school you go to. But since there's a lot of expatriates in UAE,
Hmm.
especially South Asians, Indians, so there's a lot of Indian schools and colleges that have like branches in the UAE, even in
Uh,
Oman, even in Kuwait, Bahrain, yeah, a lot of these places. So I went to a DPS, which was like Delhi Public School,
what?
yeah, but because it wasn't, but because it's not technically public, because
Yeah.
it's not in Delhi, uh, it was called Delhi Private School. So it's still
Uh,
DPS, but it's Delhi Private School because it was a private school. But it was like kind of a franchise of the OG one in Delhi. So yeah, so it's a it's kind of a weird thing. Like I was very much having an Indian
hmm.
childhood and experience without ever living here. Um,
Yeah.
but what I knew, but at that point in school, I think that I had kind of figured out that okay, I think I want to do interior design. Like that's the path that I want to take.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you why I got there as well. Um, I growing up, like one of my favorite things to do, like as a family and just as like a fun weekend activity, was going to IKEA. It was like the best, like spend use of my time. We used to like go whatever in the afternoon or in the morning and spend like a few hours there because you just and I used to love spending time there. It was just like you see all of these different interesting patterns in fabric, and then all of these different styles of furniture, and then they do something kind of quirky and interesting with all of the different kind of kitchen tools or like anything else. And I would just you'd always walk in and find something that you didn't know you needed and now you need, or you didn't know could be solved in this way but has been solved in an
A
interesting
better
way.
solution. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just really loved being there. Like it made me so happy. I also loved the design of the store itself, like the experience of the store. Nothing felt that thought, like no other store felt like it was that immersive, that thought through, where you like completely lose track of time, of like why you even came here. In the entrance of the store, they used to give you these like pencils, which was just like the coolest.
Yeah.
And then we supposed to get the inch tape. I just loved all of that. Like, and so my mind was just like, I love IKEA. I want to work at IKEA. How do I work at IKEA? I have to be an interior designer.
You reverse engineer
That's
it.
Yeah. So that's literally what that was my train of thought. So so I decided pretty early on that I wanted to do interior design, but I also from like what I was hearing, reading, talking to my parents, whatever, um, it didn't seem like there were a lot of ready-made programs for interior design at an undergrad level. And also like at that point there weren't a lot of degrees that you would get for design. So it was like either you get a diploma or like you have to do some kind of short term course or something like that. But what I also noticed was that a lot of people that I knew, like my parents' friends or whatever, who were interior designers or who knew someone who was,
Mm-hmm.
they would do like architecture because it was like a serious degree. It's like a
Correct.
5 year degree, it's legit. And then after that, they would do like a post graduation in like a master's or whatever in interior design. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. Architecture means I would still stay close to like math and some kind of science, but also it's creative. This should be fun. Um, so yeah, so I started preparing in like whatever 11th grade or something
Was
to
this like we were looking for colleges and everything in India or Dubai only?
um, yeah. So that's also an important kind of tangent, which is that having grown up outside of India, or in like pretty much the Middle East for like my whole life, I was in Oman for like a couple of years. So I'm not just saying only UAE, but um, so I knew that I wanted to leave Dubai. Like I wanted to move out of the UAE because honestly, I was quite bored and saturated of the place. It's a nice place to visit. There's like a lot of fun things there. You could spend a lot of money and like do different kinds of activities. But as somebody growing up there and like it being and again like as a family we used to really enjoy traveling together, and like so we'd been to a few places and I really liked the world. Seemed like it had so much more to offer than where I was living. The other thing that I was really not excited about was I couldn't imagine a life where like this was my entire world, like the same friends that I have or the same places that I hang out when I'm 14. I don't want it to be the places that I hang out when I'm 30 or like 25. Like I wanted there to be more things to do
Variety.
and explore. Yeah. And also, I just felt like diversity of thought of people was kind of limited over there. Like, even though I was not living in India, the people that I was surrounded with, whether that were my own friends or like family friends or whatever, were like of a
Were
very certain,
Indians.
well, not just Indians, but like a certain category of Indians, very
Mm.
specific, um, all kind of do similar work, all kind of speak similar language, or from a certain class or, background and things like that. So I just felt like I wanted to uh, be like have explore more and like see the world more. Yeah, so I basically, so after school I knew I wanted to move out there. So that was like the first kind of thought process. The second thing that
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about is, so where do I move? So there were like two options, either broadly. One is like move to India, or the other is like move somewhere outside of either India or UAE. So that could be like Europe, America, um, whatever, like towards the east, maybe like Singapore, like
Correct.
Australia, whatever. Um, I think that, and this was specifically for with like university in mind. And I was sure that it seemed like Europe or like the West broadly would be quite expensive for me to move to for undergrad. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like colleges, they like, and design school or any kind of creative degree, they they were very expensive, especially in the US. Like a lot of really good schools
Yeah.
were in the US, are still like in the US, but I thought that they were too expensive, and I didn't know if I wanted to have my parents pay for that at the undergrad level. Um,
Mm.
and then I didn't know a lot about like what was happening on the east that much. There were not a lot of schools and stuff that I had heard of or knew about people who had been there. So that left me with thinking about like whether I wanted to move to India. And here's what I was thinking for that. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that like there was a kind of um a thought that I had, and I don't know where this came from. I just felt like a lot of people, as they grow older, they kind of, you eventually just kind of, opportunity takes you towards the West. like
Correct.
a lot of people, adults like my parents' friends or even older generations, they
Uh-huh.
seem to find jobs in the US or in the UK or somewhere in Europe, and like they relocated there.
Correct.
And that seemed to happen pretty often. But like at that time, especially, it seemed like no one was making a conscious choice to move to India. Like
Hmm.
that rarely happened. Like it rarely happened that people would move to India. Now that's changing a lot. So that's different. But back then, I just felt like it seems like I would eventually end up somewhere outside of India, somewhere towards the West. It seems likely, like it seems that opportunities kind of take you there. But if I want to ever live in India, I need to make a conscious choice to do that. Uh,
Correct.
so I need to choose that. And the other thing that I was thinking about was that people say, like because I had no lived experience of this,
Hmm.
people say that living in India is hard, surviving here is difficult because it's very competitive.
Correct.
There's just like things take a lot of time, nothing happens the way in which like it's not it's not very structured, it's kind of like organized chaos. So
Hmm.
if you make it here, you'll make it anywhere. Like that was the mindset that I had for some, like as a 16-year-old, I'm just like, I don't know why I was thinking so deeply, but
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question. Like, that's too deep for a 16-year-old.
yeah, I
Like,
don't know. But I had this like very logical, very like, this is the reason why I want to move to India. I want to move to India because I want to make it in this difficult, challenging, competitive environment. And if I'm good in India, I can be good anywhere. Like that was my logic. So and like everything was hard, right? Because anything that you do, like if you have to get into a school, you have to compete with like lakhs of, if not like crores of people.
correct. Yeah.
Any job you're applying to, it's like in the thousands, in the 10,000s. Anything like, and so that was just my thinking. I was just like, people are, everyone here is fighting to be the best. um so if I want to be the best, here's how I do it. I just kind of like throw myself amongst the sharks and hope to
Come up.
survive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I decided I think I should study in India. I was just like, if I do it young, that's a great idea, because for whatever reason, if I don't like it, I can, choose to move elsewhere. But if
Yeah.
I'm older and like a little bit more rigid, maybe I'm a little used to certain kinds of routine or certain kinds of luxuries, then it
Hmm.
would be difficult for me to survive in India. So if I do it young, it's great. And the things that I learned when I'm young, I'll keep with me forever. Like it will build character, like that was the thinking that I had. So yeah, so I had kind of set my mind
That's
on
that's
architecture.
a very interesting look into your personality, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I know 16 years old who have changed cities or countries just because their friends are going. They don't know what's gonna happen. Just because my friend are going, I'm also going. And you have this deep thought analysis of you want to go here because you want to be in this. It's like really interesting. I think we'll
yeah.
come back and talk about this. But yeah, you chose architecture.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah, so I decided I want to study architecture. So I wrote like the NATA exam. Like I was
Hmm.
preparing for it. I wrote the exam. Um,
Uh,
and
which exam? Like, I'm
oh,
very blind in these kind of
oh,
things. I did
it's the
commerce, so
I
yeah.
That's fine. NATA is like the National Something Architecture and Technical Exam or something like that. I don't know what the full form is, but it's
Oh,
basically like the JE equivalent for architecture, or like
okay.
the NEET equivalent for architecture. Like at the national level, there is like one exam, and most architecture programs, they
Choose
enroll
students
you
from
based
there.
on your score. Yeah, they
Yeah.
they they choose to enroll you based on your NATA score.
Okay.
Mostly public schools, private schools may have their own exam or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, so since you're from Ahmedabad, you probably know CEPT. So like CEPT was on the top of my list because
Oh,
it's a
nice.
really reputed school for architecture. Also, uh, School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi. So all of these like really top schools, because like I didn't know anything. I just like did a Google search, like what are the best schools for architecture, and then I found like the top five, and I was like, I need to go here. And yeah, it was difficult. I did a little bit of architecture coaching in like the summer holidays when I visited my
Mm.
grandparents in Chennai. That was pretty intense. I didn't like it very much. But yeah, it was fine. And nothing compared to like people who do like engineering coaching and stuff like that. So I wouldn't put it in the same umbrella, but yeah, whatever. So I was preparing, I gave the exam, my board scores and stuff were also fine, whatever. But before, around like in 12th grade, a friend of
Mm-hmm.
mine, a really close friend of mine, Siley, who's still my friend, she's also a designer. She had told me, she was also my friend from school. So we were
Mm-hmm.
like best friends in school. And she had, her dad or her, they had found out about the school called National Institute of Design, NID,
An
in
idea.
Ahmedabad. And I had never heard about it until that point. So she was just like, okay, either she wanted to either do economics or study
Mm-hmm.
industrial design, which is kind of random, but like those were her options. So, and she was
Okay.
like this, she still is like one of the, maybe the smartest person I know. And at the time, for sure, she was the smartest person I knew. And she was like, okay, so I'm going to apply to Berkeley, California, and I'm going to apply to NID Ahmedabad. I was like, okay, the
I'm
smartest
just seeing
person
the
I know.
extremes.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, if the smartest person I know is like talking about the school, maybe I should look it up. So
Check
then
it
I
there.
went back
Yeah.
home. Yeah, I went back home and I told my parents, okay, Sally's applying to the school, or like she's considering it, and they seem to have a furniture and interior design program. And I was like, dude, that's what I want to do. So and remember, till that point I didn't even know that you could do like a 4-year program to study design, because my understanding was that there are only like these shorter diploma programs. So this seemed like really legit. So
So
my
yeah, and
dad,
before
yeah,
you continue, I just like to add one thing here, which I connect, I like relate to a lot, is that even when I was doing my schooling after 12th, I didn't know that these kind of courses were there, right?
yeah,
And see the extremes, like you're looking, like you're really living in outside of India, in Dubai, like I'm studying into CBSC and all that. I'm here into SSC, Hindi medium, all that, right? But that knowledge, like, okay, there's this big thing which you can learn design. People are not even aware, right? And so extreme. That one thing is there, like we don't know that this exists.
yeah.
But yeah, okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, but it's like it's interesting because I think about all of the things that people have access to as
Hmm.
information today, and I'm just like, I don't know if that's necessarily better. Like, I would be so confused if I had that much choice,
Yeah.
or if I had that much access to information. Sometimes, like, knowledge is power, but like ignorance is bliss. It is truly relaxing to not know stuff sometimes. It's real stupid, but like I find that when you have so much information, like I don't envy the students of today. Like they have so much choice, and that's a good thing, but also kind of
No, yeah,
difficult.
yeah. The students of today, I mean, I'll be very blunt. They are fucked. They are fucked. Like they are living much harder life. People said, like in Corona, they were like, they got passed. They didn't have to get exams. I was like,
Yeah,
they're like, even that is tough for them because they're gonna go out in world today, where
yeah,
everyone is already killing it while they are in 15 years or 16-year-old, right? At least in our time, I'm talking about 12, 13, 2012, 13, right? We didn't know that people were killing it, right? So at least you were calmer and we were figuring out our
yeah.
own thing.
I don't know
But yeah,
anything, dude. I was just like making it up as I go along, and like for some reason I was like this old 16-year-old, like having like all of these ideas. I don't know where they came
yeah.
from, but yeah. So she was gonna apply to this school. She told me about it. I checked out the interior and furniture design program, and
Hmm.
it seemed like it was really sought after. It seemed like it was a really old, very legitimate program and school. Like I read about the school. Then my dad helped me do like a lot of research. I think he was traveling to India around that point. So he decided to take a trip to Ahmedabad to check out the campus, check out the school,
Nice.
meet some people. My dad and mom were like super helpful. I need to kind of just add also that as a young person, the reason why I had so much um, critical thought and
Mm-hmm.
independence and autonomy, and not kind of be influenced by what everyone else is doing in like a way where like, oh, my friends are doing this or my parents did this or whatever, was because my parents literally just want let me do whatever my where I felt gravitated towards.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, of course, ask me questions, make sure that I know what I'm talking about, or like, um, they would help me kind of guide that decision,
Yeah.
but never in a way that they enforced any of their own uh, background or their
Not
own
not not
experience.
helicoptering in a way, you're
Not
saying.
at all. And
Yeah.
I think also that, I mean, it is true that I grew up being pretty, I'm the older sibling of two girls. I have a younger sister, and I've always been kind of independent and
Yeah.
self-reliant. Like I just kind of always navigated things knowing what I wanted to do. But I mean, I wouldn't have been like that if my parents didn't. Like, we used to have a lot of dinner table conversations where I was never spoken down to, or like we would talk
Mm.
like equals, and have a lot of conversations about different things, topics and different things in the world. Like I said, we would also like I, I can't believe that as a young person, uh, like a family of four, that we traveled to so many different places when we were young. Like I'm so grateful. Like when I think about how expensive trips are as an adult that has to pay for it themselves, like I have to pay for it myself. I'm just like, wait, what? Like my parents paid for like all four of us. Like that's
Yeah.
insane. Like that's so much money. Like why? But
Why?
yeah, but it's so I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for all those experiences that they chose for us to have.
Correct.
Like, and it's really amazing. I'm so grateful for that. Um, so yeah, so basically I decided that I would apply to NID as well, apart from architecture. If I get into NID, which seemed really difficult, then maybe I could consider that as well. So yeah, so I applied to NID. We had to fly to Ahmedabad to give the test in the Ahmedabad center, because obviously they
Mm.
didn't have any centers outside of India. So I traveled with Siley, and her parents went with them. We both wrote the exam. And yeah, I
This
mean, it was
was in
fine.
which year? 2013.
20 2013 January. 2013 January. Um, and then 2013 June, I joined. Uh, so by this point, to 2013 January, I have not yet written my board exams, my 12th grade board exams, but I find out that I got into NID in Feb of that year. The exams were like Feb to April or something like that. So I basically knew where I was going to college before I wrote my board exams,
Yeah.
um, which is a crazy thing. Or I might be getting the timeline wrong a little bit, but basically before I got my board results, I had got admission into college, which is really weird, like interesting place to be. Like everyone else is like kind of nervous about where they're going to college, and like yeah, we knew it. So yeah, so we both usually the NID exam, like the entrance exam, has like three different stages. So there's like the written exam, like an aptitude. Then there's uh, a more hands-on kind of, like you make models, like they trying to think about your um, thinking using physical materials and things like that. There's an audio visual test, and then finally there's an interview. So each of these is in different three stages. But because they had like uh, they had created a situation where like people who are coming from outside of India could do all of these three stages together. We did it like on the same day, or like in a span of 1 or 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
So we gave the aptitude test, we did the physical studio test, it's called, and then we did the interview. So that was in January. I was like, oh my God, Ahmedabad is so amazing. It's so cold here. I love the weather here.
I was gonna ask
Uh,
you that question.
so the funny thing is that I remember really well in my interview, one of the faculty, he asked me like, what do you think about Ahmedabad or whatever? Like, why do you want to move here? And I was just like, the weather is so great. Like, I love, because it was January in Ahmedabad. It's the best time to go
Cool
there.
time, yeah.
Yeah, and it was so pleasant. The campus was so green and so nice. So I was like, I'm from Dubai. This is amazing. Like, it never gets as cold and pleasant there. Obviously, he started laughing when I said that because obviously he knew what I didn't know, which is like it goes up to like 45 plus
40,
degrees.
46, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, but yeah, I got in. Sally got in as well. And so we decided that we go to NID, and I joined June of 2013. Um, and what I didn't know that was that first year is like foundation year,
Mm-hmm.
where like everyone does the same thing. You do a lot of like foundational design basics and skills. So like drawing, color, composition, material, stuff like that. And after the end of the first year, 2 semesters, um, you, based on your grades for the different courses and based on like your jury, whatever evaluation, you get to choose what discipline you want to focus on. So I decided, so I came there very set on wanting to do furniture and interior
Yeah,
design.
correct.
And then very quickly, like after the first semester, I was just like, I don't think I like material. I don't think I like the workshop. I love the workshop, but like I can't see myself doing this long term. I would get migraines when I walk, like when I was there for more than like an hour. The smell was so weird. There was always like dust. And I was just like, I think I'm a bit of a princess. Like, I don't think I like this. And I was not very good with tools also. So like we had like this wood basic materials like wood course.
Correct.
And so we had like a log of wood and we had to like make something out of it. I used to use the chisel like towards myself. It was really stupid. I was not very dexterous, let me put it like that. And I would be pretty clumsy with tools. I didn't know like how to do things. I still am not very great with tools and with like material, physical material. But I basically quickly realized that I think I was wrong about what I thought I wanted to do. And simultaneously, what was happening was I was seeing so much work of like the seniors in the college and like, people around me, like different kind of displays and stuff that they would put on, where like so much of the graphic, like visual work, like really
Correct.
appealed to me. And specifically, the typography work was like blowing my mind. And
If I can, I remember there's like Tarun, or like sir's name, like the teacher who teaches us,
yeah,
Tarun.
Tarundeep. Tarun
Tarun Dev, yeah.
Tarundeep Girdhar was a professor of mine. Like he taught us typography, but it was more the students' work that I felt was like really like blowing my mind. And what I realized was what I kind of grew up loving to do, which was like making those chart thingies, or like if
Hmm.
I come back to that initial story,
Writing
or
straight
like,
line and all that.
yeah, drawing words and like long sentences without lines. All of that was basically me. And like I used to make a lot of like I used to do a lot of lettering when I try draw block letters, try to add a lot of different like 3D shadows and like use different kinds of treatment. I didn't know the word typography then. I did not know the word, like, I didn't know about lettering. I didn't know about graphic design. I don't know about any of these things. But basically, what I loved doing was working with letters, working with type, working with like visuals. And now I was finally learning like the vocabulary and seeing like it's there's like known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, unknown unknowns. So basically like there's like a 2 by 2 graph Yeah, I'll explain that. It's like a 2 by 2 graph. So there are like things that we know, and then there are things that we know we don't know. But there are also so many things that we don't know. Um, because it's just like so expansive. Like we don't even
Correct.
know
Yeah.
that we don't know those things. That's basically, so now it moved so many categories of things, moved from my unknown unknowns to now moving to things that I know I don't know, but I want to know. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me, because I was just like, damn, like this is so cool, like this is what I want to do. This is what, and I was kind of really seeing the coming together of like, this is what I want to do, and this is what I think I'm good at doing and I would enjoy doing. Like there's that book, right, Ikigai, which is like,
Yeah.
do what you're good at, do what you love doing, and do what uh is like makes you
The
money,
whole
something
Venn
like that.
diagram, like four circles.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have this
exactly.
here, but yeah, I'll put
Yeah,
an
I
image
read
here.
the book, but yeah, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So basically that's what, like I was just kind of seeing that happen in real time.
Hmm.
So then at the end of the first semester, second semester starting, I was just like, I've made it my life's purpose to now I want to join the graphic design department. Um, and it was a very, very competitive field. So like the most sought after disciplines were like product design, which is physical product design. It wasn't digital back then. And then the other was graphic design, would be like pretty
Mm.
much second. Animation would be close second as well. And yeah, so I basically decided that this is what I need to do with my life. I need like, and I had decided that if I don't do this, there is no other discipline or like any of the other fields that I could see myself doing, because I felt like I don't think I'm good at any of those other things, and I don't think I could do any of those things long term. Yeah, so I became kind of obsessive in the second semester, did a lot
Uh-huh.
of like side projects and stuff that were outside of our coursework to show my interest and willingness to want to do graphic design. And like, and yeah, so I did a bunch of stuff. And yeah, long story short, at the end of the second semester, after our jury, my grades were kind of decent enough where I was able to join the graphic design department. And that is how I became a designer.
Yeah, I think that how you get it as designer, right? I feel when you say become, right? Like, how did you like get into projects? You're saying
Okay,
you're doing freelance.
sure.
Like, let's get into that sort of
Yeah.
things.
Okay, that's how I became a design student. Let me put it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so I did graphic design. I mean, I studied graphic design for like 4 years or whatever. Uh, I mean, I to mixed
Oh,
success, I would
what do
say.
they used to teach in NID? Like, see, I think that's a very like I would love to know the scope of that. What did they teach you? They teach tools, skills, which kind of skills?
Yeah, sure. So the education, the curriculum is very focused on like the timeless aspects of graphic design. So, typography, color, composition, layout, print, um, things like that. Like that are, very, like it'll never change. Like the medium
Correct.
might
Yeah.
change, the
The
tools might change.
foundation.
Yeah, correct. So these are the things that they wanted to really kind of drill in and make sure that we all were very equipped with these tools.
Hmm.
And I say tools because I think these are really the tools. And then, of course, the design tools that we eventually end up using use these tools.
Correct.
And if you're really good at like these fundamentals, you can figure out any kind of
Anything.
medium, or you can just kind of adapt your skills. um we also had like some courses that had to do with uh kind of tangential, the like being a designer. If I remember, there's like a design management course we had, which was a little bit like kind of like starting a startup, but like no one used that word back then, and I'd never heard the word, so I don't know anything
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, that's essentially what we did. Like we made teams, and like we had to start a business together, think about like from a design lens, design process type thing, like how do you um think about starting a business. What's the business model? What's the branding? What's the positioning? Blah, blah, blah. But I would say the bulk of our education was really focused on like the hits, like, oh, also illustration. I missed that out. Um, in terms of like actual software and things like that that we learned, a lot of it was not like we learned the tools from the faculty, but more like we learned to use the tools through the program because we had to do the things that
Yeah.
were being taught to us. So I know that like it's not the same as being self-taught. Like being self-taught is like very different, and uh I don't want to take credit away from people who like have to learn from scratch, but the tools are always to some extent kind of self-taught, like the software, I mean. The software that we and I would say till today, like I wouldn't say I'm a software expert in any of the tools. um I know to use like the whatever creative cloud to a reasonable degree. Like I can figure it out, but I don't know how to use all the tools in Photoshop or like all the tools in Illustrator. But I just whenever I see people using it, I'm just like, oh my god, I hope they don't know that I don't know how to do any of these things. But yeah, but I just kind of we just learn all of that. We learn like a lot of typesetting, publication design, um, yeah, I think broadly that's
Hmm.
I mean, I really kind of summarized it, but
Yeah, obviously we can't like you didn't
yeah,
tell the
yeah.
whole thing in this 1
Also, to
hour
be very
call,
honest,
but
like I don't remember all the programs. So yeah,
but yeah, okay. So you graduated from as a graphic designer, right?
yeah.
What is the next step? What did happen that?
Yeah, so I graduated. I I still kind of enjoyed doing like I was wanted to continue. So before that, during our after our second year, like we had to
Hmm.
do an internship, and I had done my internship at an ad agency in Dubai. My parents were
Yeah.
still living in Dubai at the time, so when I had come home for the summer, whatever, I had to do the internship. So I did. I was working as a graphic designer in an ad agency, and I really did not like it. And the reason why I didn't like it was just I just didn't like the nature of the work. Like I didn't feel like advertising was for me. It just like I didn't feel very excited by doing advertising. I was just like, okay, this is cool. I can appreciate what people have to do, but like this is not for me.
Okay.
Um, and so I kind of eliminated wanting to work in an agency. And then after that, or like an ad agency, let me put it like that.
Yeah, I get it.
Then another agency, not another agency, another internship. I worked at a studio called Struck By in Delhi. The studio, it doesn't exist anymore, but it's run by two designers, Sanchit Savaria and Pratik Upreti. It was run by them. And Sanchit is a graphic designer, Pratik is a product designer, like a UI UX designer. And like they started the studio together. They're really cool. Like I love their work. Um, and they were also like people who I had heard really nice things about because they were quite a few years senior to me at NID as well. So I joined, did an internship there as well. I really liked that. It felt closer to what I wanted to do. I worked
Hmm.
on like an internal project, more installation, like public good type project. It was called Low Local. It was to um, bring attention to like street vendors and um, like the vendor kind of culture in India that we have that are like unstructured, non-kirana, non-establishment street food and like other kinds of street vendors. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was like an installation, visual design, kind of conceptual project, just internal studio project. So that was fun. And yes, I've done a few things here and there. For my graduation project, I worked with this company called Start India Foundation, like ST plus ART. Like they do the street art projects, a lot of them in India. So they've done like Lodi Art District. They've done a
Oh.
lot of projects in Bombay, in Bangalore, and other cities. Um, they're really cool, their work. So they're public art projects. Um, they try to, you know, improve the physical spaces and bring art, like move art from more private, kind of bougie, closed walls to more public, so that the people, the general audience can enjoy all kinds of different art. And many of these projects are, the locals also participate in it. Like they either participate in the concept or in actually executing it and things like that. So that was really cool. I was supposed to design a book for them about street art in India.
Hmm.
Again, it was more like a student project. So that's what my graduation project was, designing this book, documenting all of the, like, the history
Process.
of street art and public art in India, like from a historic lens, but then also more contemporary. Uh, Start India's influence, why they're doing this, who are the people involved, blah blah blah. So designed this book, and then documented the process of designing this book as my graduation project. That was really cool. Again, that was in Delhi. And then I had graduated. By that point, my parents had moved to Singapore. And so I was staying with them. And I was thinking about what to do next. So I was applying to a lot of different jobs. And I was not really like against anything apart from, like, I didn't want to work in advertising. Apart from that,
Advertisement.
I was kind of open. Um, and I just started spending a little bit of time on Twitter. Like I was just becoming familiar with how, with how Twitter works, and I think I wasn't even following Abhinav back then. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about anything, and there was a tweet about them hiring a graphic designer slash illustrator at
Hmm.
Unacademy. Um, I didn't know about Unacademy. Like I told you, I had never heard the word startup in my life until that
Correct.
point. I didn't know about the world of startups, about funding, about like tech companies, like VC funding, all of this stuff. I don't know
The whole
anything
Bangalore
about,
scene.
yeah, I didn't know about this at all. But this tweet sounded like they were looking for a job. I mean, they were looking for somebody to fill that role. I was looking for a job. So, and I checked out the website, seemed interesting. They were working in the education space, and I was just like, I guess this is noble. Like, I don't know. Like, I think being in education space is like a good thing. So that's obviously like very young and like naive. But yeah, I wanted to just do good things.
Correct. Yeah,
And
Unacademy.
an academy was hiring. So, and just browsing Abhinav's profile, he seemed like a interesting person. So I was just like, okay, fine, and maybe I want to talk to this person. So I DM'd him. We got on a call. I showed him some of my work, and then, like, it was a really nice conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with him. It seemed like I could potentially enjoy working with this person. Like those were just like that. I did not have a ton of criteria for my first job. And then he gave me an assignment, which I enjoyed doing. Um, and it was basically, the job was for a product illustrator. So
Hmm.
their product design team needed an in-house illustrator to do some of the like in-app illustrations and things like that. So I had never, I don't identify as being an illustrator, but like I'm a designer who can illustrate. Let me, put it like that. And yeah, so I did the assignment. It was good. He liked what I had done. I also thought that this was a good opportunity. Uh, my friend, my friend Siley at that point had also moved to Bangalore, which
Okay.
for a job, and like it's so funny that, so it's like 2023. I've known her since maybe like 2011 or 2010, and uh, yeah, and like I'm so grateful. We went to school together, we went to college together. We now have lived in the same city for over 5 years. Like she's the closest friend I have, and like it's so nice to have somebody who I've kind of grown up with in some ways. Um, and she had moved to Bangalore already. She got a job here, and this opportunity was also in Bangalore. And I was like, okay, I've never lived in Bangalore, but then one time I went for this concert. I attended an all-J concert in Bangalore when I was living in Ahmedabad. I thought the city was really cool. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll move here.
The
And
weather was always nice here, not like
yeah, it was
Ahmedabad.
correct. It was really nice. And it seemed like a new city for me to live in, because by that point I had stayed in Delhi for some time. I'd stayed in Bombay. Of course, I was familiar with Chennai because that's where my family's from. Um, so Bangalore seemed like the next big. Also, Ahmedabad I had stayed at. So Bangalore seemed like the next big city for me to try out. So I moved here and I joined an academy.
Mm-hmm.
I literally moved here like a day before I joined. Um, and I remember that it was, and I joined, like, my first day was May 2nd because May 1st is Labor Day. And then I moved like one day before. They were really nice, generous. They like gave me like a close by hotel stay for a week because I was
Figure
relocating
out
here.
PG and all that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then so I found an apartment, a flatmate by that point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was really nice. I joined an academy. I joined the product team. There were just four of us at that point: Abhinav, myself, Prithvi, and Nilank. Just four of us. All three of them were like digital product designers. I was coming from a more like conventional graphic design background, but I was a product illustrator. And yeah, I think that uh, very like within the first 2 weeks of joining itself, I realized how much I have to unlearn from like design education to make it
Mm,
work as like a design professional. They were very different things. Nobody gave a shit about like my design process
pros.
or like my research or like any of that. So I started out like very like how I had done all projects in school, where like I would make sketches, I would do some research, try to make a good case. See, one of the things that I was really like I got drilled into my thinking, having studied in a design school, especially one that is a more Bauhaus and like kind of, like the design school that NID is from, was that design was like a means to an end.
Hmm.
It is finding a solution to some kind of problem. So that first things first means that like you need to really study the problem and truly understand if there is something that needs design intervention. So unlike a lot of the engineer turned designer people who I was kind of surrounded by, who had like this build first kind of mentality where like they would have like a half thought out like there was barely a problem, or like it was not even necessarily a problem, but it was more like I want to build something, and they would just build it. And I came from a place where like I really had to justify the need to build something,
Build something.
uh like because the kind of background that I was from, like in school, like a lot of our faculty would shut down ideas if we didn't spend enough time
Man.
figuring out what the problem was. They didn't care. Like many projects, I didn't even reach the end of what the solution or like the different kind of final solution should be, because we had to spend so much time. Like we were kind of encouraged to spend so much time on validating the problem itself
Problem
and to
first.
define the problem and to try like speak to people, do research, yeah, like synthesize those ideas, all of that, before actually going into like attempting different kinds of solutions. So my first week I had to design some spot illustrations for the app, and I was just like I started sketching stuff, and then after like 1 week of sketching, which is so long, I went back to Abhinav and I was like, okay, these are the sketches I've made. These are the concepts that I'm thinking about. This is like
Hmm.
one style we could do. This is another style. I was thinking about this because of this reason. And he was just like, okay, but like make it. Like, where is the thing? Like, why have you spent so much time on this?
And theory, yeah.
And and I was like, I was so confused and kind of upset because I was just like, oh my God, like my first week, I'm being too slow. Like I haven't done anything. I was really kind of stressed out. Um, and yeah, I just realized that he really kind of just wanted me to do the thing, like to not talk around the thing or to talk about what I was going to do, but just do it.
Do it.
So yeah, so it was a real change. It was a real shift for me to move from a place where I had to really justify what I was doing to actually doing it. And people really focusing on the thing that I was doing rather than why I did it. So yeah, so I then spent the next week just kind of jamming out a few different ideas, tried out different things. Again, like I was learn. That was also my first introduction to Figma. I had never used Figma before. I was familiar with Illustrator. Figma is pretty similar to Illustrator. It was cooler that like people were on the same board and things like that. And I think the features were kind of simpler back then. This was 2018. So I got pretty comfortable with the tool early on. It seemed kind of simple, and yeah, tried out a few different ideas, and like people were pretty happy by like the first couple of ideas. That then there was a little bit of feedback here and there, but it was really surprising for me to come from a place where like the first 30 ideas that I come up with is just like reject, reject, reject.
Rejected, yeah.
Yeah, or like this could be better, this could be better. Like always kind of giving feedback on doing more, trying more, to a place where like people seem to be content with what I had done because timeline was a new uh, constraint that I didn't have before.
Deadlines were
Yeah, in
reduced.
design school, like you're just everything is hypothetical, everything is um, just kind of for the sake of learning. It's not with any kind of uh, business uh, constraint, or there's no money, there's no time, there's no other stakeholders. So, like everything you do, you're doing purely from a lens of like, how can I learn the most without taking any of these other considerations. Yeah, into the process. But now I was really influenced by all these other things around me that like definitely influence the work. Like you can't do design if you don't have these constraints. Is
Yeah,
like a strong belief that I have, which is, and I'm never mad about like a timeline or a business constraint because that
it
is
helps
what
us.
makes the design. Yeah, like um and which is why the same interpretation of a beef or a problem statement or an opportunity could be anything, because the different factors that change are, of course, the people who are working on it, so the stakeholders, the time, the resources, the influences, which is why like no two things will like I don't think they ever uh, ever come from the same place or like can end up being the same. They can come from completely different um,
Everyone can interpret,
influences.
yeah, the things
Yeah,
differently. So
yeah,
you joined an academy, right? So here's like, when did you get into the word, introduced to the word brand design? Because still I think you
yeah,
were hired as a graphic designer, right? When did that happen?
yeah. So I was working like I was in the product team for about like a few months, and like
Uh-huh.
so I joined in May. So in June of this, literally the next month actually, um I realized that one of the things that I had to do, like as soon as I joined, one of the first few projects is I had to share the Unacademy logo. Like we had to make some kind of um poster type thing for one of our investors for them to add to like their portfolio wall or something like that.
Visual, yeah.
Yeah. So Sabina was just like, can you just, create some kind of cool poster that we could send to them? So I was like, okay, fine. And what I realized was that, so I wanted the logo. So I asked for the logo. He sent it to me. And then I realized that every time someone needed the Unacademy logo, they would type out the word Unacademy in brand and grotesque. So they had like the symbol, but the word mark was not a word mark file. Like it was typed out every single time. Like
So
it
the
wasn't
no
a ready-made
kerning,
file.
no spacing wise, no fix,
Nothing.
nothing.
It was just typed. Okay.
Everyone will
So
change it
like
differently, yeah.
exactly. So I was just like, wait, what? Like this is this is and to in Unacademy's defense, it was a very early company at that point. I was like less than 200 employees I had joined, and the one and maybe the marketing team had like a logo file, but like no one in the product team seemed to have that. And I was just like, this is horrifying. If you have to type out the the word mark like every
Every
single
time.
time. It's going to create all these like random versions. So,
And
so I was like,
also,
okay, fine.
product design
Yeah.
team is doing that. Like they are making components and then creating variation and all that, and they are not doing this for that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know why. Like, maybe this was just my experience. Like, maybe
Yeah.
people did have the file. I don't know. But at that point, type it out, and like, there was no SVG or Illustrator file of the logo. I was like, this is not good. Okay. So I was just like, okay, fine. So this means that there's a real opportunity to um, tighten up the brand, like the visual assets, the visual language, and all of that. And the other thing that I was kind of learning was also that from a strategic, like positioning point of view, there was not a lot of active work that was thought about and done. Meaning, the founders had an idea about what they wanted the company to be, what the vision, mission, values and things like that were for the company. And also similarly, the logo was drawn by Himesh, the CTO, with certain
Hmm.
ideas in mind. But there wasn't like a very conscious effort to kind of rein in what the brand was all about. I also felt like a lot of different people within the company had different interpretations
Just up
of what
there.
the brand was all about. Um, and there wasn't like a single not necessarily a tagline, but like a positioning statement or a value system that we could all really align with. Simultaneously, a colleague of mine, Shweta Shivashankaran, she had joined the marketing team, and she was kind of experiencing similar things from a marketing and
Marketing point.
like from a communication lens. And I was kind of coming from a visual point of view. So I was thinking about how can I, by still staying nested in this product team, how can I start thinking about like the brand guidelines and like the uh, yeah, the toolkit, like the style guide for the brand, without, see, as somebody who's like fresh out of college, a few months into joining this new company, nobody's going to allow me to do a rebrand.
Yeah,
Like, it's a bit much. So I was just like, okay, so this is not going to happen. I don't have any influence. I have no authority. Honestly, I don't even know how I would do that. But I can silently, without really telling anybody,
can just do it.
consolidate the brand and then be like, hey, look, we did this and this is going to be really useful in these ways. So so of course, I told Abhinav, and then, like I said, Shweta was also thinking about this. So we decided that we'd work on this together. So I would think about all of the visual considerations, and she would think about a lot of the communication stuff.
Communication. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and together at the end of that project, we would put the guidelines together, and we would share that with the whole team, the founders, other stakeholders, things like that. So we have like a consolidated uh, image, a cohesive brand. And that's what we did. We just kind of did this in the background. And at some point, Gaurav, who's the CEO and founder, he also came to know of it. He also thought it was a good idea. He didn't, again, like want anything to change drastically, like, but he was happy to kind of figure out what the moving parts were, make it really like set,
Cohesive, the whole thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
set it in stone. And this was also a very exciting opportunity for me to think about what the brand typeface for Unacademy should be, because like there was no, they were using like some fonts on the marketing social media stuff, and in the product they were using a completely different set of fonts.
Fonts. Yeah.
Website was different, everything, like, so it felt like, and the marketing and product design teams were very siloed from each other, which was something that didn't really sit right with me, because I was, by background and by education, I was closer
In
to the
this,
brand and marketing side,
but
but
you're
I
working
was
in product.
working in the product
Product.
team. I also started observing like certain trends in not just Sun Academy, but like broadly in tech companies and their design teams. That, like, because product design teams were nested under technology teams and brand design was nested under marketing or like
Marketing.
business functions, they would get treated very differently. Like, tech teams were like the, they had
God.
all the pull. Yeah, they had
Pa-
all the pull in the company. And they had different timings, Like, they would come early, leave early. Business teams were expected to stay later. They had different kinds of, and like lots of things. And it was really jarring for me because like I was benefiting from this from being in the product team, but I was also really kind of confused, and I was just like, this is not right. Like, there's something kind
This
of
should
not
be
good. Yeah.
solved.
So I didn't really, it didn't sit really well with me, and I was just like, I'm too young to say anything about it. I don't have any um, power yet. So I'm gonna create influence by doing good work, by proving myself, earning my place, and then I will make the changes that I see, that I think should exist. So through the brand book, through the guidelines, we really kind of rallied the entire company, which really at that point was like around 500 or whatever, to around the brand. And like we had like a whole presentation, or we printed the brand book in like hard copy. Like I sat at
Mm.
the printers like for a few hours. I love doing things like that. Like I love getting things in print. I miss doing things like that. Um, and again, because of my background, I was the right person to get these things done, because a lot of other people in product companies have almost never done anything in print.
Yeah.
Um,
Then
and
don't know Coral Draw.
Correct. I don't know Coral Draw either, but
No
I'm
worries.
sorry. I don't know Coral Draw, but I know, at least I know like what to speak to the printer about, and like what kind of instructions to give, what kind of results to expect. And I was just like, damn, like I didn't know that this is going to be my secret sauce, because the people around me didn't seem to know a lot about that. And there are a lot of things, of course, that they knew that I didn't know, but it was a really cool place to be. So, yeah, so then we printed out the brand book. We had like this whole presentation. The brand book was even shared with like Unacademy's investors. There were like copies that were shipped, like delivered to the offices of like the Sequoia investors, now Peak 15. But yeah, and it was really cool because people were so impressed by like a series A company doing like a printed
Brand,
brand
yeah.
book. And for me, I didn't think it was that special because I was just like, this is what we used to do in design school. But I think it's this juxtaposition of like the people in the startup world, they don't usually hire like conventionally design
Yeah.
background people. And like conventional design background people don't usually join tech companies. They join like studios or agencies or things like that. So I was like this unicorn human being there, where I was just like, damn, this is so cool. Like I get to experience the best of both worlds in some ways, and like learn from it, benefit from it. I was really enjoying that. So through that project, I basically, it was really appreciated. And I made a case for there to, and at that point also, a lot of the designers in the marketing team were quite unhappy because their leadership was like a marketing person, not a design person.
Correct.
So they would get a lot of feedback from like the founders, or like from, basically realize that the reason why a lot of the designers in the marketing team was unhappy was they were unhappy because the feedback that they were getting was not from someone who actually understood
Understand.
design. And also, of course, the leadership was not happy with the work, because they were just like, why don't they get what we're looking for? And the designers like, why don't they get what like we want? Like it was like a real gap. So I basically told the founder Gaurav, I was just like, okay, so this is the problem, that this is the gap that you have. Um, what I'm proposing is that we create like a new team, a new design team. You can call it whatever you want. I did not think about like brand design or anything like that. I think we went with the creative team at that point, which is something I don't like very much because I don't know what that means, but it's fine. Creative team. And we can basically, this team is like a centralized team that works directly under the leadership. So I'll report to you. And this particular team, does all of the design stuff, like any kind of design work that anybody needs outside of product design. So whatever happens in the apps or on the website or whatever, the product design team can handle that. But anything else that any of the other teams need, we'll do it. And for that reason, I don't want to be a team that is under the marketing function, because then
Correct.
people will think we only do marketing. But we can work with the sales team, we can help them make their process better. We can work with business teams, we can work with HR for like internal stuff. Um, so there's a lot of even with PMs for like, landing page projects and things like that. So, and of course, illustration and stuff like that as well. So it started like that. Like, so within 7 to 8 months of having joined on Academy, I started this team called the
You're leading
creative
this
team.
team.
Sorry?
Uh, I'm saying leading this team, right? Like you made it
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you started
My
leading
my
it.
designation was creative lead. Um, and yeah, so now I had this new team and I was reporting to the CEO, and it was really cool. Uh, and like, I guess I was 23 years old at that point. So,
It's a
uh,
good. This is an
pretty,
achievement. I'll be very honest. I mean,
yeah, it
23
was
is
like kind of weird. Like, I was just like, I don't think I know everything that I need to do for this role, but I'll figure it out. And like, that's the thing that I really loved about my time at An Academy, because I joined early, and like there was so much
you worked at an
opportunity
academy for how much year? How much time?
for a little less than 2 years. And then I joined Graphy later on, which is also an Academy product and brand, but that was for another year. So like overall, a little less than 3 years. But at An Academy alone for 1 year and 8 months or something like that. But yeah, I just really like that as a young person, as an ambitious person, as somebody who really wanted to prove themselves. An Academy was a perfect place for me to be, because I um, there was so many opportunities and there was nobody to say no to me. If I did it, if I would just like, I find something and I was like, okay, I want to figure out how to do this, figure it out, and then just do it. It's not, it wouldn't, of course, it's not going to be the best it can possibly be. Probably be like lots of mistakes. A professional, maybe somebody way more experienced, would have done this a lot better. But it's fine. I could do it fast. I could do it. I could learn something by doing it. But yeah, I grew that team to like 7 to 8 people by the time I left. And so that team had like graphic designers. It had motion designers, a couple of interns. We were working very closely with the marketing team also by that point. So we would do a lot of the campaigns, writing. We worked on the An Academy's first like IPL campaign, which was really
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Yeah, it was called Let's Crack It. uh, and yeah, it was really great. But the reason I left is also
Hmm.
an important point to note. Was less because I was unhappy or that there was anything wrong. Was more because I just felt like I was growing a bit too fast, and I felt like if I keep growing at this pace, then there'll be a point where like my skills don't match my
Designations or the
power,
roles.
yeah, or my designation or whatever. So I'm gonna be, because I became a manager pretty quickly. So I was like, I don't want to
Hmm.
be a shitty manager. Like, I don't want to be the kind of manager that can't do a good job themselves and is just kind of good at
Telling
delegating.
people what to do, but can't
Yeah,
show them by doing it. Yeah.
exactly. So I wanted to really kind of rein in my skills and make sure that I was good at doing what I was doing. So yeah, so I joined another company. Uh, I joined Ola. It didn't work out. I was there for a very it was for a little bit of time, just for a few months. Didn't like it very much. Didn't work out for me. And then the pandemic happened. And yeah, that was interesting. And yeah, I joined Graphy like peak lockdown. It was really cool for me
Oh,
to join
I don't know.
Graphy. Yeah, because I joined like right after the founders, and like it was very conceptual at that point, and I was like, this is an interesting opportunity. The reason why I joined Graphy was because I was I had always had this vision of, if I had the chance to design an internal team from scratch, I
Okay.
would design a centralized design team that had both brand and product designers. And these designers would collaborate, work closely together, and that way, it would really influence the way in which the design culture is of the company, but also the experience of the product and how users actually experience like the product. Because usually what happens is that the brand and product design teams are so separate from each other, and like, because they don't speak to each other that much, it really shows in the end user experience. The
Now,
advertising,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
I think now this practice, right, like having a creative team, has become like a norm. I feel because like the Polygon I joined for doing this only. Like I made
Yeah,
my own team, but obviously, like in my case, that company was still rethinking their processes. So like it changed, like didn't work out. But I think now it has become more normal to do that, right? And also, CRED I think brought a very big change in that way, where you don't keep
yeah,
different categories of teams, design teams. You have everyone in one, and then you work on what you want to work on, not just like one fixed role.
yeah, yeah. I was seeing this also, like, of course, by that point, because I wanted to make sure that I was doing, like, learning as I was going along. So I would read a lot about teams, more mature startup design cultures at Airbnb, at Twitter, at a lot of these companies that I thought was doing design in a very interesting, like, had a very strong point of view about how design teams should be structured. Even Spotify has an interesting model where, like, they have
Mm-hmm.
like a, or at least they used to have, like, they have a pod and squad model where, like, so the person who is your people manager is different from the projects that you're working on. So they put a team together for different kinds of projects, and you're not necessarily working with your people manager, like the person who is giving you feedback, or the person who is um yeah, who is affecting your appraisals, or your, what's the thing called when you go higher, your,
Uh, Growth.
yeah, like, I forgot the word, but
No, it's
like,
growth for the lack of promotion. Yeah, promotion. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So but so I was just reading about all of these different things. So I was just like, I want to make sure that our product and brand are the same thing. Like, they are one thing. And it is, and that's how I kind of came across this thing of, like, brand experience design, where, like, it's just, they kind of influence each other, and
Mm-hmm.
they are not separate from each other. And I was and that's what I wanted to do at Graphy, and this was a chance to create a design team from scratch. So at that point, Abhishek Damodar, a colleague who was leading the product design, so he joined Graphy and he was leading the product design efforts, and I was leading the brand. And we
Mm-hmm.
basically were like co-leads of the same team, and we would share, like, the team. So uh, if there was any kind of graphic visual work required in the product, so the visual designers would work on that. The motion designers would work on both, like, micro interactions, but also work on, like, brand films, or like in-app stuff, or promotional material. um, and that way, what really happened, which I was really happy about, that people actually noticed this for the first iteration of Graphy, was that the experience was really seamless. Like, it felt like the same people were making all of the stuff that was coming out of Graphy. So it was really rich, very immersive, very cohesive. And yeah, that was the goal. So and I also felt like it keeps the team morale also really good, because everyone is learning something that is outside of their core skill set. They're doing what they're good at, but they're also learning things that they might want to learn that otherwise might be hard to learn. um, for example, I know a lot of visual designers who are, curious about digital product design, but, like, unless you make a hard shift to product design, you
Mm-hmm.
can't learn maybe UX patterns, or, like, how to design apps, or all of these small things. And especially with tools like Figma and stuff, well, collaboration is so natural.
Easy.
Yeah, it should be easier to learn things that are outside of your core skills. So we had like interns. So so we had like an intern season where we hired 3 interns, and we told them very clearly from day one that they're not going to join as like a product or brand design intern. They're just going to be a design intern, and there are going to be different projects that we would like their participation and help on, and they will learn a lot of
We,
different things through that.
I think we should do a different episode. I'm going to write this down and remind you whenever you have next time. We should definitely talk about brand design in product companies. Right? That's a very interesting topic, which I like. I've been struggling to figure out that space. Right? Because brand design is very different than like what product designers like expect you to be. Like they hire you and they expect you to do different things. I think that's a different topic you want to talk about. Uh, Next thing I want to learn about is I think again this brand experience term, right? So this remind me of BX design, like which is a
Yeah.
cohort you teach. I would love to know more about that and share that with the audience.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So through my experiences at product companies, I was really identifying a gap in the space in like
Hmm.
tech companies where like there was not a lot of emphasis on brand design. And what happened was that they would hire people who had like more typical graphic design backgrounds, and there was a fit mismatch. Like the designers would be unhappy, or the companies would not be satisfied with their output or like their quality of work. And it was less about quality and more just about like expectations versus the results. So I realized that a trend that I started to spot, and I think when I was at Graphy, it was like the early-ish days of Pred as well, and with Graphy also, I realized that there is an opportunity to kind of kickstart a new generation of designers that have visual skills, uh, but they are useful and applicable to scenarios that are not just marketing or not just product, but like there is a range of different things that you can do in a company, especially if they have like the access to resources, that you could create so much um, value through design that is not conventionally taught or that you don't expect when you join a company. Like a lot of really cool things, like Facebook, for example, in its early days had like a manifesto that was created, printed in their own press by the design team. It's like this red book. Uh, I don't remember what the manifesto, the handbook is called, but it's very
Hmm.
cool. Like that was something that they basically, the culture of Facebook in the early days, this move fast and break things and their entire ethos, they designed an entire book around it and made that available as like a culture manifesto
Like a
document.
handbook with everyone.
Yeah. For example, then Stripe has Stripe Press, where
Hmm.
they publish books, and that landing page. I highly recommend everyone check out that landing page, the Stripe Press landing page. So everything is done like kind of tangential to the brand. There were a lot of cool companies doing things that were not their core um, product. Like Cash App had like now had a clothing line. Um, I was seeing that Cred was doing a lot of projects that were um, marketing, but from a very brand
They run their
strategy,
own
very
magazine
strategic.
now.
Yeah, but like even before, even their ads, I was like the reason why the early set of ads was so good was because the insight was so strong. Like,
Correct.
and it also felt like the the culture and the strategy of the brand was very everyone was aligned on that, and it was not confusing, and it was less about selling a product and more about pitching their brand, like pitching their what their values are and that kind of thing, because they rarely ever advertise their product. They're usually just talking about like a certain um, culture or like a certain category of people or whatever. So I was just like, okay, so there is a gap. So there are going to be more such opportunities and more such roles in companies that are
Mm-hmm.
not really, that don't really have the right kind of title yet. Everyone's calling them graphic designer, everyone's calling them visual designer, whatever. But when they actually join or when these people apply, it's not working out. So how can I like do something about this as somebody who's actually been through that process, like have lived experience through that. So I created BX because I wanted to help like and train like the next generation of these designers, so young self-taught or early career designers that want to be able to join in these roles and contribute to especially tech companies, but also lots of other kinds of roles, but in a way that I don't think has been adequately prepared. They have not been adequately prepared for that yet. And I wanted to just fill this mismatch and this gap. So I learned about like brand experience, what that means, and then just kind of tailored the program to be like, what are the fundamentals that I learned from my design education that I think are tool agnostic. I don't. It does not matter whether you do that in Figma or in paper, but like these are tools that are helpful no matter what. And then what are other skills that I know are really integral for you to be a value addition to a company. Like if that means you know a little bit about business, you know a little bit about sales, you know about how product works, you know about like you know how to talk to a product manager or like to an engineer. You know how market what like marketing teams are thinking about, um, and that way you are just a well-rounded designer with really strong visual communication skills that can take on any role and provide value there, and use design as like your method to provide value. So that's basically where BX started and came from. And I know like a lot of the designers are, it's intentional that it's early career, because I feel like I started also, my journey at An Academy was also like fresh out of college. And I know that when you're young and hungry and you have a lot to prove is when like you also have the opportunity
To
to
learn
do the
more.
most and to learn more. And my hope is that all of the alumni from the programs that we've had so far and that we'll have going forward will acquire these skills and these learnings through their experiences, and then kind of influence the design culture of startups, of tech companies in India, like and really create uh, brand design as like an area of influence in within the company, which I think is very much, we're still very much in the early days of um, tech or startup companies really investing in brand.
I'm in
um,
Web3. I always figure early.
yeah. So I just want the designers from the cohorts to be prepared
Ready
for
for when that
this
time
chair.
comes.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool. Sneha, I think by the way, we've been talking about for more than 2 hours. I don't know if you noticed or not, but that's a great journey. I think we got to know about your like childhood. We got to know about your school, college. I think Siley, right? You should
yeah,
say thank you to Siley.
yeah,
Well, this is the like this is common every episode I did, right? Everyone has that one friend or one big brother, big sister who have guided them. You could do this.
yeah.
Like I am still have to met someone who's like, what I figured out by myself. There's always someone who has influenced that in
Yeah,
some way.
100%. Yeah.
Always.
I've
Wow.
had a ton of people like that in my life. Like, yeah, just a lot of good luck, good people. Yeah.
A good
Yeah.
be good human beings.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Sneha. I think before we even go, I would just ask you to like one last question. Is there any advice you want to give to designers?
Uh, I would say, I mean, if I really just had to give one piece of advice, it would be like to do your own thing. I think that there is a notion that there's a certain kind of designer that you should aspire to be. Whether that's from like an ambition point of view or like from a like whatever it could be, like you need to build your personal brand, or like you need to be a certain kind of personality, or you need to have a certain category of work. But what I've learned from so many designer friends that I have, and from just kind of observing like people, there's every kind of designer. There are people who do incredible work that we don't even know of. And if that's the kind of person that you want to be, there are also designers who do design as if it were any other job, like go to office and like come back. And that's fine. Like if that's what you want, like that's completely okay. I don't think it needs to be your entire personality or anything like that. But again, if you're the kind of person who wants for it to be your entire personality, that's fine too. I just think that it's easy to be concerned that you're not a certain kind of designer. But yeah, there's like all flavors of designer, and do
Yeah.
what works for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sneha. Before we
Thank
close
you
this
so much.
episode, I would just give the audience one more information that the new BX cohort is coming up in the next, when it's coming up, like if you have any date in mind right now.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, it should start like next year, like early next year. Applications should start in January. I will keep the website ready to like for waitlist and signups when this episode comes out. So yeah, so you should just check out the website. It should be 10kdesigners.com/bx hyphen design. Yeah, that's where you should find it. And I'll make sure that it's updated and everyone can find the information that they need to sign up if they're interested.
yeah,
Yeah.
so everyone go to the description box. There's the whole information you need, and I'll see you in the cohort. If you're someone who wants to learn about brand, visuals, graphic, get into that cohort right now. Thank you, Sneha, for coming. Thank you, everyone.